You're watching TelecomTV at the Smart IoT London event 2016. I'm joined now by Andy Gent, who is co-founder and CEO of Revector. Andy, good to see you again. It's been a few years since you spoke to us at TelecomTV.
Yeah, about 4 or 5 years now.
Can you tell us, in the traditional telecoms industry, when we look at voice calls and the operators rolling a voice call, what happens to that voice call? Where's that voice call go? Where do operators get their traditional revenue from?
Traditional revenues over the years have been coming from both the local calls and the international calls. Really, if you look at the local calls as being paying for the infrastructure and the basic running of the system, and then international calls has been really looked at as a profit area. So international incoming calls has been where the bottom line revenue comes from. And traditionally this has been coming over legal circuits with internet agreements between countries and operators to land on the customer in the far end.
Now, when we last talked at TelecomTV, we were seeing ways of bypassing that route with international calls. So what was happening then, and how is it different now?
That's correct. From the 80s there's been different types of bypass, such as callback, and then when we last spoke, the last 10 years has seen a massive increase in a phenomenon called GSM gateways or SIM boxing. So basically calls have been generated from one country but have been landing illegally in other countries through SIM boxing, and this has been taking away the revenues of operators.
And that still exists today?
That still exists today. In fact, when I started this company over 10 years ago, I predicted 2 or 3 years, but now we're still seeing a growth in that in some countries.
Now, a lot of us live lives or seem to live lives inside messaging apps, and messaging's central to how we use our devices and how we communicate. We use a lot of third-party applications. It's a different landscape than it was even 5 years ago. Are we seeing the routing of calls changing because of this app landscape?
We're seeing a continual change. The traditional illegal termination through SIM boxes still exists. However, this is being overlaid by a number of phenomena. One of which is the messaging, the types of apps such as WhatsApp, Viber, etc., which started with SMS and messaging, so the revenues from that disappeared, and now we're seeing the voice revenues disappear. But in 2 ways. One is where customers make a purposeful call to another, so taking a WhatsApp call and I call you on WhatsApp. But 2, the one that is most worrying is where somebody picks up an old-fashioned black telephone, say in the UK, and calls somewhere like Sri Lanka, and this is actually starting on a black telephone but landing on an application, and the operators are losing all the revenues.
So traditionally they would have received call termination revenue.
They would have received call termination revenue from their legal routes. Then they lost some of that revenue through SIM boxing routes, and now they're losing all of that revenue through application delivered routes.
How big a problem is it though for telcos?
It's a serious problem, and I think 5 years, 6 years ago I mentioned it to the operators they should take action. This is the same problem now with what I call OTT hijacking, and their revenues are dropping off significantly.
So OTT hijacking, so define what that means.
OTT hijacking, if you take a normal OTT, let's say a WhatsApp call to a WhatsApp call, the customer decides to make a call, so Andy calls Guy over WhatsApp. However, what is happening now, Andy picks up the phone, a GSM phone, to call Guy in, say, Sri Lanka, and it lands on your phone, but it comes up as a Viber call. So if you've got Viber turned on, this has been hijacked along the way, and it's been delivered as Viber.
So given that operators, the telecoms operators are losing potential revenue because of this, what can they do to fix and correct the situation?
Well, there's 2 things, and it's not just the operators, the governments as well. The governments are losing revenue and the operators are losing revenue. And also the customers are also getting not the service that they're paying for. And there's a number of ramifications that we can go into later. But to answer your question, what can they do? First of all, they can monitor their networks and see if this is occurring. And Revector's been monitoring it in a number of countries in Asia, the Middle East and Africa, and we're seeing over 50% bypass with OTT of the routes we're calling in, and sometimes higher. Once they see that, they can then really look at what revenues they're losing. And it's quite easy to see by looking at the records over last year and the records today and seeing where the international termination has dropped significantly.
Is it affecting customer experience?
Customer experience is affected. One, the quality, the call setup time, but also if you're roaming and you're on a data roaming, you could receive a call when you're data roaming, so you could get a massive bill shock as well.
How does that work?
Well, basically, if you're in, say, let's say Sri Lanka, and your phone, you just turn on data roaming just to pick up some emails, but a call comes in at that time, and it comes in on Viber, that will ring on Viber, and it's using your data package. And instead of paying, which could be a high amount to start with as a voice call, you're paying a data call over a period of time. And bill shock could occur when you return home.
So we have to fix the situation. The industry has to fix the situation. We talked about monitoring calls. You talked about the governments losing money as well. How are governments losing money?
The governments lose money because when they give a license out to an operator, they're giving it on the way of the international spectrum, and they get a revenue share from what they've sold the spectrum for to the operator. So it's a form of a tax. So I was involved in Bouygues in France and Mobile One in Singapore in the early days, and the government would take a share of the revenues for giving this license out. Now the profits are down, so they lose corporation tax. They also lose the revenues from the government tax, and they're losing the revenue all the way around because they're getting no end user delivery costs.
Is this something that needs to be looked at on a regulatory level, at international level?
Oh yes, yes, totally. You know, I'm working with a number of governments at regulatory level on SIM box fraud, and they're now concerned that they're going to lose revenues because of OTT hijacking.
So what is Revector doing specifically to help the problem?
Okay, Revector has had a product to deliver solutions for SIM boxing over the last 10 years, and we've now worked in over 100 countries detecting and eliminating SIM boxes by terminating the perpetrators in different ways. On OTT, we're one of the first to actually launch a product that can detect the differences between OTT to OTT and OTT hijacking, but we've also developed a product to stop the hijack calls but allow the legal calls, OTT to OTT, where a customer or a client requests that.
Customer being?
The person who makes the call and the person who receives the call.
So explicitly requesting it?
Yes, so if I want to call Guy, and Guy's in the USA, and I don't want to spend a high amount on my voice call, I can make a Viber call to you or a WhatsApp call to you directly. So I've requested it, you're receiving that, and that's going over Wi-Fi or GSM data which you've paid for within your package.
So uncorrected, the way we're using our devices and communications tools now, this is just going to get worse and worse.
It's going to get worse and worse, and this is where Revector's building products that can first of all monitor end-to-end conversations and calls to see how it's been delivered, but B, within the realms of net neutrality and the rules of governance, how we can actually affect those calls end-to-end and deliver back the revenues to the operators that rightly belongs to them.
Andy, fascinating discussion. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Guy.